Today we're releasing a report detailing how a University of Iowa employee pocketed just short of $1 million by treating public equipment and public employees as his own. Brian Bush was employed at the University of Iowa machine shop. It was effectively a shop for creating parts and prototypes one-offs. It's supposed to be revenue generating for the university. They would bill other university departments for the work they did for them, for example. He also signed the university up on a public website where people could hire a parts creator for one-off projects, so that the machine shop's staff and equipment could stay busy and generate additional income for the university. That website is called Xometry, Xometry. As contracts for jobs came in off Xometry, he would have employees handle the work on university-owned machines and while on the university's clock. But $943,000 worth of payments through Xometry instead ended up in his own bank accounts. University unfortunately failed to increase scrutiny in 2019 of Mr. Bush after ordering him to repay $3,550 from his own company, D3T, which had requested 3 of those projects through Xometry. They did not do an internal review of conflict of interest policies or heightened review of Bush's future transactions at the machine shop. Bush had not noted the company, D3T, on the conflict of interest forms that he had been required to fill out with the university. The whistleblowers in this case provided much of the information needed to investigate it, including text messages with Brian Bush that are detailed in our report and photographs. You'll note the report is about 300 pages. This is a big one. Those whistleblowers went first to the university in 2021, who then requested our office perform an investigation. A couple of additional items to highlight. After completing 587 Xometry jobs and earning $951,000 while having access to the university's machines and employees, Mr. Bush only completed 11 jobs for $11,000 in the 2 years after having been removed from the machine shop. When you searched for the University of Iowa on the Xometry website as you were looking for certified manufacturers, Mr. Bush's business, D3T, and his home address was the information that actually populated after that search. There were also numerous instances where Mr. Bush dictated how much time should be charged to a job, or that time shouldn't be billed at all. For example, there was one instance where Mr. Bush stated in a text message, "Anything over 30 hours and I will lose money." Not the university, not the machine shop, but him personally. He also made more than $6,000 worth of improper personal purchases on his university credit card or purchase card. This is at least the 4th report issued by our office since 2017 involving conflicts of interest by university of staff at the University of Iowa. The 5th is in the works. We cannot tell you that that means that they have a bigger problem. It might mean that they are better at reporting it. We would obviously remind anyone working at a Regents institution or anyone in the state of Iowa working for the state that they do have obligations to report any irregularities to the state auditor's office. We've shared our report with the Johnson County Attorney's Office and with the Attorney General's office. Happy to take questions.
Can you repeat again where this has been brought up once?
Yeah, so in 2019, Brian Bush was ordered to repay $3,550 to the university. That's because his own company, D3T, had been the requester of 3 projects through Xometry, which were then completed by the machine shop. So he was on both sides of that transaction as both the requester through Xometry and then the builder through the machine shop. The easiest way to think about Xometry is it's a marketplace for people who do machining work. If you were looking for someone to put together a part that you needed for a prototype for a new project, you could go on there and find an independent contractor who might bid on the project that you were asking people to put together. So that happened in 2019, but again, like, he retained employment. His future transactions obviously did not receive any additional scrutiny. And here we stand today with $950,000 that went into his pocket rather than going to the university.
How and why was he separated?
When whistleblowers came to the university in 2021, he was placed on paid administrative leave at that point.
Oftentimes your audits, your general audits have recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you recommend this?
The university needs to improve their conflict of interest policies. They also need to do a better job of verifying them, right? The university should move in the opposite direction of state government, where we are reducing checks and balances at the state level here. It obviously pays to move in the opposite direction and make sure that people who work for the state know that someone is watching them.
What happens to the money in question?
The money in question would be if a civil case or criminal case is filed against Mr. Bush, something that could be disgorged through that process. Johnson County Attorney General's office. They would be, I think, most likely at this point.
So what's the timeline on this event? How long was this for?
Years. I mean, so it was 2019 when the $3,550 was made to be repaid. It was 2021 when whistleblowers went to the university about the larger issues, and he was placed on administrative leave.
That 3550 one big order, or was that
3 jobs. Yeah. Yes. The machine shop was supposed to be a little bit of a revenue source for the University of Iowa. It's within the physics department. As the physics department is conducting experiments, right, they're going to need to have parts created for their experiments, pieces created for their experiments. They're going to need to have equipment fixed if it can be fixed in-house, right? So the machine shop existed mostly for that reason, but because they had all of this expensive equipment, they said, well, let's make sure that we're using it, right? Let's make sure that we are taking advantage of what we have and trying to generate revenue for the university. They could also generate revenue for the department. So the physics department, if a different part of the university requested a job be performed, the physics department could then bill that department for that work too. So it was a machine shop at the physics department for the university that would bill out its work no matter who it was doing that work for. And what it fundamentally came down to is at the end of the day, Mr. Bush had public employees and public equipment doing work for him instead of doing that work for the university.
So there's more than 900,000 that turned up missing. What was the overall revenue?
I do not know that. We can tell you that there were points in time, the biggest chunk of the revenue that we are attributing to this was when there were no other jobs being done. There weren't any orders for work from different departments. There weren't any legitimate orders for work going through exometry, right? And so my assessment would be that this was the vast majority of the revenue at the time.
So other than supplying parts for physics, was there any other education?
There were, it was a small number of people that worked there, but there was at least one student employee who was working there. I don't know if there were other educational aspects of it. I don't think you could take a class in machine shop, for example. Yeah.
So he's been gone since 21.
Yeah.
What's transpired between 21?
Like I said, it's a 300-page report. So this one took a little bit longer than usual to put together. I will also add to that. We had been working on the timeline of federal prosecutors, and that's often slower because they have a longer statute of limitations that they have to work with. But we reached a point where we felt we simply needed to release this report to make sure that there was legal action taken at some level, whether state or federal.
Are you confident that all the money that's missing?
we're confident that it was traced because we were able to receive documentation from Exometry.
I can't remember, did you say any of the money was recovered?
Well, we noted no. We could trace it to his personal bank account. We do not have authority to recover funds ourselves.
Federal prosecutor.
They have not declined. They are working on their timeline, and we were working on their timeline. Again, that's just a longer timeline. Standard statute of limitations at the federal level, 5 years. Standard statute of limitations at the state level, 3 years. And having been a state prosecutor for 7 years before I was in this job, I can tell you that the last thing you want to do is run past your state statute of limitations, trusting that charges are going to get filed at the federal level when they haven't been yet. And here we are with half the year left to go. Not half the year, a quarter of the year. We're okay, I'll put it that way. That's why we're here today. Yeah.
Explain what constitutes a federal investigation into
Well, so we're a state entity. Our investigation is a state investigation. And I think what you're getting to is really a question of who, if anyone, is also involved in our investigation. And that question is as simple as, who's working on it with us. And again, like I'm the only piece of this that is really material is the federal authorities oftentimes feel that it's fine for them to work on a slower timeline because they have all that extra time, right? But if your focus is on accountability, the last thing you want to do is run into a situation where you've said, okay, we're just going to let this timeline lapse on the state side because it sounds like the feds will take it. You don't want to do that because you could end up in a situation where something changes and then all of a sudden there's no accountability for it. And so we are getting this report out now because we do not want that state limitation to run before the report is released. So this is, and to be clear, we're not rushing to get it out. We have waited to get it out.
Sounds like you are very much hoping that someone takes legal action here.
We expect that there will be legal action taken at the state level.
And for Mr. Bush, he was put on paid leave in 21. He's gone, right?
He is now gone. Paid administrative leave is not the decision that I would have made if I was in charge. University officials have pointed out that they can claw back pay that is provided during that timeline. But that again is their decision, and that'll be up to them.
Do you have any idea when he was no longer an employee or on paid leave?
I don't know. Sonia, do you know? When he was removed from
Former employee,
paid
right?
administrative leave?
When was he terminated?
Yeah, or however.
When he was removed from administrative leave.
U of I has the same.
Okay, sorry.
August 28th.
August 28th.
August 28th, following the completion of the state audit, according to University.
Yeah.
Does your audit contain his salaries, what he was paid?
No.
Who had the internal responsibility within the university?
That would be a good question for the University of Iowa. Again, it was housed at the Department of Physics, right? But it is a revenue generating center. And so that should be an area with additional scrutiny, particularly with conflicts of interest. It's not dissimilar from a report that we issued a few years back on the Department of Psychiatry, where there was a professor there who had sort of his own private institute and was using a lot of his time at the university to further that private institute.
Can you specify which federal agency?
I don't think I can.
Are there any other?
We worked with the Iowa City Police Department on this.
Something weird, but he piece things together, right? This person who is alleged to have done this was on paid leave for 3 years.
Correct.
Is that a long time?
I wouldn't put them on paid leave at all. Again, like this is someone who in 2019, they already had to have them repay $3,550. So you would think in 2021, when this comes up again, they would say, we've seen enough. But again, we don't get to make that call. It's not our decision. He's not our employee. We can't say whether or not to pay him on, put him on paid administrative leave. Their decision. Not necessary in my eyes to sit and wait for an audit report that is sitting and waiting for the federal folks who are just moving on a federal timeline.
Does state law require like universities to have a certain amount of internal auditors?
I don't know about internal auditors, but certainly with an organization of any size like a university, you're going to want to have checks and balances. Obviously, the leadership in this building has been moving away from checks and balances, and so that tone I think that is set is an important one. And I don't think that the moves made in this building have been beneficial in terms of protecting taxpayers when it comes to making sure that people who have access to state resources feel like someone is going to be looking at them and paying attention to what they do.
So the machine shop's still in operation?
I think the machine shop is still in operation. Anybody got anything else? All right. Thanks.